just want to chat about on-set communication. As I've been bouncing around between different sets, I've noticed some small differences in jargon and protocol and a few other things, and it's all a learning experience. Because obviously, we've actually spoken about this in class. You have a standard, at least that you've told us. We've heard of standards from like the first AC workshops and stuff, and obviously it differs everywhere. And I think the ultimate example of the got it versus yours mine situation, which is, for those who don't know, it's not just a camera department thing, it's like a grip and lighting thing as well, isn't it? So when you're past an item, in one school of thought, you say got it before the person releases the item, and once you've gotten a grip. And then another school of thought, which I learned recently just on a different set, was that yours mine is a thing where someone hands something to you, waits for you to grab it, says yours, you grab it, say mine, and then they can release it. And it says I couldn't pick it up properly either, because it did kind of like, it was new to me. But those are two different things that serve the same purpose that are not universal between sets. And there's a few other things. One of the sets that I seconded on recently, I didn't slate every single shot, and it was very new to me. I was like, I can't believe we didn't do that. It was a weird learning experience. I just want to hear your thoughts as well, and also what your standards are and why.
At the end of the day, it is what works, what's going to make the set run more efficiently, what is going to remove confusion, what is going to prevent accidents from happening. If we start with the whole got it, then it is mainly about protecting expensive equipment.
Yeah.
And there is also a safety aspect. There is a tendency, if someone spots out of the corner of their eye something about to fall that is very expensive, to break into the matrix bullet time kind of, which is a hazard in and of itself. There needs to be some kind of acknowledgement that when you pass an item from one person to another, the receiving person actually has a firm handle and control so that this said item isn't going to drop and break.
That's something I'd never thought about before we started talking about it at JMC. I was like, you just make the assumption that someone's going to grab something. And the amount of life issues that got it fixes is just astounding, even as a sort of a rule of life, not even a set thing.
A story I came across early on was a friend of a friend was a camera assistant. He worked on I think it was the second series of Survivor.
I've heard this
which was set in the Australian outback. They were shooting a night scene, and this was in the early days of reality TV shows as we know them today. So reality TV show meaning there was hillside with 18K HMI on the top, raking the top half of the hillside 500 meters. And then halfway down the cliffside was another HMI raking the bottom half going the opposite direction. So, you know, that was the reality of it.
As real as it gets, yeah.
So this camera assistant was in the middle of it, asked by one of the camera operators for a different zoom lens. Said zoom lens was worth $40,000. Being at night,
I've heard this
poorly illuminated.
Story, and I'm already like seizing up because I know what happens. This is not good. Go on.
Of course, tripped on a rock.
Classic.
Dropped the lens, smashed it to pieces. And
I
generally the attitude is you break it, you own it, as in you pay for the replacement. I mean, there are limitations, you know, like if it is a genuine attempt at getting your job done and you've kind of done your best and you've followed all the kind of procedures and everything, then at least on a fully funded legit production, then there will be insurance to take care of some of those things. But by and large, the joke goes, whatever you break becomes a doorstop to the value of the replacement of XYZ, whatever. So generally, we want to avoid becoming the proud owner of a $290,000 doorstop because you had it. Now, the way we go about acknowledging that is different. My approach to teaching it has been to keep it simple and to have an acknowledgement that we use the same way every single way so that it becomes second nature. And for me, it's been the receiving person calls out got it, because I think initially that's a fairly straightforward sign that yes, you can let go. Now, where there is a little bit of confusion might be who actually takes control of the item.
Okay.
Which is where we've seen the development of the yours and mine. So the way it's supposed to work, so I'm not sure whether that was just you not quite picking up on it or whether it was a morphing of the habits, is I have an item, I want you to take it. I declare yours before you actually take hold of it. So I'm telling you, you are now going to grab this hot potato,
I grab it,
right?
and then I say mine.
Yes.
Okay.
Or there's the vice versa as well. It could be that you see someone holding on to something and it's kind of a bit awkward and it's kind of a little bit of a hindrance in what they're doing right now. You can go up to them and go, mine. As in, I'll take this now.
I like that. That's clever.
So it does kind of add that, hang on, are you going to take this? Am I going to take this? Who's doing what with it? However, if you don't understand the protocol fully, I feel like as a beginner, well, you let me know. If you don't fully versed in that ritual, for want of a better word, which is easier to develop the initial habit, the yours, mine, or the got it?
I think got it's easy. Well, I mean, I'm biased because it's the one that I learned, but got it felt very easy to learn. I'm still not perfect at it. And again, it's because I haven't actually seen everyone use it, you know? It doesn't seem to be as ingrained. But then again, I've literally been on like 2 or 3 actual sets. So like,
which is why I apply it to everything in teaching. Here, have some air.
Got it. Haha. Thanks for the air.
Things do change over time. There are cultural differences. There are geographical zeitgeist differences. I don't think we're ever going to get to a stage where every set is run exactly the same way.
Which is something that I had deluded myself into thinking might be the case. What I'm learning is that one of the processes of walking onto a set is also getting a mental rundown of how this set is going to run. One example, one of the bigger ones that I shot on was it was a very fast moving commercial shoot. Lots of stuff to get done. The DP was operating. First AC was at the other end of the room, focus pulling, and I was slating. But at a certain point, I walked up to the first AC because a couple times the production manager who was sort of around was just like, don't worry about slating this one, we're in a hurry. It was a Moss shoot mostly, so there wasn't any sound, and it was all being, like all the important information, like the role and the time code were being obviously kept digitally in the metadata as they are. And at one point I walked up to the first AC and just said, is it worth me slating anymore? And he was like, no, don't worry about it. And I just helped out in other ways for the rest of the day, or just hung out. So it was just a really interesting thing to have happen. And the set ran like a well-oiled machine for the rest of the day. It was great. And I would never have expected that to ever happen, which is just such a strange thing.
Snarky side of me? No. Snarky side of me is like, was there a question in that?
No, there wasn't. It was just an anecdote that was related to the sets running differently. There really wasn't. There wasn't actually a question in there. It was just like, well, I mean, the question is how much disruption of what I can what I've been made to expect as like the machine can I expect? That Slate thing made sense. That was reasonable. It was a time thing and an efficiency thing. And evidently the editor was okay with it. How much can we disrupt the order of things and still make something like have it work, if that makes sense? Because I know that it happens a fair bit, but also doesn't. And whenever it happens on, say, like a student film, for example, I'm always a bit skeptical. Like, I'm like, do we know? Is it one of those situations where you need to learn how to do this thing perfectly before you start breaking the rule? Which is why whenever, like, you know, on a student film, we stop slating or something like that, I am more worried than I would be if I was on a commercial set. How much have you seen much disruption of the whole process, the whole due process being like the reset, then all the call outs, and then the reset? Like, what are your thoughts on that, if any?
I've probably, I was going to say, like, seen and done everything under the sun, but that's not true. I haven't been on the truly big sets. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit to find an answer, not so much in as I don't have anything to say. It's more like I've got too much to say, so I'm trying to figure out like how much
I'm glad you have too much to say.
This topic. And my gut reaction is, here we go again.
What do you mean?
I think a lot of our topics have been a surprise that things are done differently than you have experienced.
Yes, which is, you know, that's inevitable. Very, very inevitable.
Are you starting to pick up some hints on that?
Yeah, the hint is probably just it's going to be that way. Who cares? That's normally the answer to a number of these things.
I think the biggest change has happened in as much as everyone is now able to view the rushes at their leisure. Shooting on film, you didn't get to see it until the next day at the very earliest. And even if you wanted to watch it, then how many people had a 35mm projector at home or a 16mm projector at home? So if you kind of want to have a little bit of a think about like, okay, what footage have we got that covers this line of dialogue with the person looking right to left? You can't just scrub through the footage.
You had to remember? Or was there any other particular system for that?
You would have a paper trail. In editing, did they teach you the paper edit?
I only did 1 unit of editing, so I don't think so.
So this would be the kind of like a very, very, very rough way of weeding out like unusable takes, for example.
Oh.
But in your log sheets, both for camera and continuity, you would have a column for usable or no good.
Oh.
So you could quickly go through on paper and say, I'm not even going to bother looking at these takes because they've got NG both in the continuity sheet and they've got NG in camera sheet. Don't ever bother.
I'm assuming that's still done today then. Like, that doesn't sound like it would lose its usefulness in the digital age.
I would hope so, but I'm not sure whether it does get taught, to be honest. So the idea, though, is that there is enough information about each take written down that you could very broadly kind of arrange a rough assembly on paper before you even touched the answer print. Sorry, the daily print.
I feel like this is in the blink of an eye at least
it is indeed.
Once. Yeah.
Where he was using a precursor to Excel to build his own footage database on the paper.
So a lot of questions are popping up in my head over time. Like, I realized that, so you haven't been on a set for like a moderate amount of time. So you would have, and the ones that you've seen now at least, or at least have experiences with, are probably either student films or from anecdotes from like alumni and people who've gotten more work. Did you shoot much digital when you were or did you kind of stop around the same time film stopped being used?
No, did shoot quite a lot of digital, yeah. And yeah, a lot of things did go out the window because, you just load up your little H.264 proxy on your laptop and scrub through it and go, that's where that.
So about to ask, again, when I was talking to that first AC, he was like, all the information is there already. The roll is there. The mag is there. It's been formatted. It made me wonder how much of the on-set workflow has changed because of digital shooting. And you've mentioned before in the past the fact that there was a kind of discipline that comes with shooting film. And like a lot of directors now who do shoot film do it for the work ethic as much as they do the aesthetic. Is that, do you see like any truth in that? The idea that we've kind of become a bit more frivolous with the way that we shoot our content? Is it just a flat yes? There's not really much else to elaborate on that one. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, probably the one I dislike the most is the rolling on the rehearsal.
That's that's happened with me before, and it's as a second AC, it's a bit confusing. Kind of.
Well, I mean, you've probably figured by now, like those things that I dislike, I've got a flippant retort to.
Oh, what's the flippant retort?
If you're rolling, it is by textbook definition not a rehearsal. It's a take.
I can see you like, guys, listen. Actually, it's a take. Okay.
I think personally, with that one, I have my reasons, and I think it is great for directors and actors. But I think there is a tendency to forget that the camera and grip rolls are in some ways as performative as acting.
How so?
Well, you're physically acting the shot.
Fair enough. The grip roll as well, moving stuff around.
If you dolly grip, you're moving the dolly, you're moving the camera.
One of the sources on the commercial shoot moved with the camera as the person moved towards the camera. There is
a performative element to that as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Focus pulling, the ultimate performance.
Yeah.
As in, you can do a bad take, you can do an excellent take. There are levels of performance to those rolls. Similarly, usually the one that sometimes really screws people over with rolling under a rehearsal is half the time I'll probably find that you got to cut this so-called rehearsal anyway, because either the boom came in shot or the audio clipped because the sound recorders never got to hear levels, like actual performance levels.
Because one of the points of rehearsing is to hear the performance.
Yeah, so it's kind of like rolling on the rehearsal is seen as a way of increasing the actor's performance, but it kind of ignores the fact that there are other crew members whose performance will benefit from rehearsal as well. There are certain types of shots, like with extremely dramatic, intense moments, where I can definitely sympathize with actors and understand that we shouldn't spend their emotional energy on too many takes. But I think if things like slating on a regular basis is disrupting your performance as an actor. So I'm not talking about like the once in a blue moon kind of potentially Oscar winning moments. I totally get that. But if we are talking this on a take by take, setup by setup basis, then in my personal opinion, are they really ready to be a screen actor as opposed to a stage actor?
Ooh, hot take.
As in, at a certain point, is acting not a craft, and should that craft not also adjust to the acting
happening around it?
format, the production format that they are working within?
I think based on what you're saying and what I've seen as well, a lot of what makes up the process of a set and how it functions is preference. And it's a lot more than what I thought it was. Like a lot more. Like you have your preferences as you're describing right now. Like you might not like rolling on a rehearsal. You might like, you prefer got it over yours, mine. Whereas you'll
on set, I don't care. Like with the yours, mine, on set, I don't care.
But it's more of a learning thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Halfway through the episode, I finally figured out what I actually want to say, which is wonderful for both of us. And I don't know if this is going to be a consistent issue. Maybe I don't have enough experience. Who knows? Maybe we'll listen to this episode in hindsight and be like, what the is he talking about? It just happened a lot. I'm learning a lot of jargon and I'm learning a lot of processes. Things like when to call tail slate, how loud, when to call second sticks. All of these are very second AC related, I'm aware. What things are called and why. However, I'm not noticing much consistency in these things. And it's not a bad thing. And it's actually kind of cool. And it makes me wonder how much, number one, how do I get an idea of how things work on specific sets? So for example, like if the first AD wants to call tail slate, or if I want to call tail slate, and then should I be doing that directly after it cuts or not? And these are things that were different on two different sets. You know, when I should call second sticks, or if the first AD should call second sticks or not, which differ between sets. It was interesting. And then things like jargon, things like I learned recently that, you know, when someone wants to change a battery, you swing a battery. Didn't know that. That's cool. I've also heard a battery called a hot brick, which is absolutely crazy. Tripod is tripod or sticks. Do I need to stack up all of this jargon, or do I need to figure out correct ones to use? How do I walk onto a set and figure out what their process is? Who am I asking? If I'm a second AC, for example, should I walk onto set and ask the first AD what callouts they're going to use? If I walk into a set, how am I going to ask you what jargon they're going to use for certain things? Or do I just absorb these things by being around them and sucking them up? What do you think?
Yes.
Excellent. That's the end of the episode. See you next time, folks. Roll credits.
A bit of column A, a bit of column B, a bit of column C, a bit of column D, a bit of column E.
Don't remember there being a column B. There wasn't a column E either.
No colony?
There was no colony. Sorry. That was a
no E. coli.
No what?
Well, I guess there kind of is some E. coli, because if you don't get it right, you're in the shits.
That's the end of the episode, folks. Let's roll credits. That's it. That's actually the end of the show. Straight up. 37 subscribers tops. We'll leave it here. Yeah, no, sorry. Please keep talking.
I would probably start with a little bit of an assessment of the age and background of the people you're working with.
Considered age.
I think above a certain age, there is probably going to be less patience with someone doing it differently than they do. Hopefully, as a society, we are moving in a direction where there is acknowledgement and understanding that a lot of these things operate differently, are called differently, are named differently, etc. My first protocol was probably be your immediate supervisor.
My immediate supervisor. So I'm second AC. My immediate supervisor is either the DP or the first AC. I always forget.
No,
first AD?
First AC.
Okay.
I would probably kind of try and get a little chat on, I've been on a few sets now. People have been doing things a lot differently. Can we clarify a few things? Or can I ask you how you would like a few things done? And I would probably start with the slating and the calls, because that's the ones that are probably going to be the most visible to people outside the department if it doesn't work, if it doesn't flow.
Yeah.
Again, the performative element to it. I would like to think that crews out there would be happy for you to ask, do you have a preference? Like I got taught to say, got it. I've also used yours, mine. Which do you prefer?
I actually did ask that on the last bit that I was
and curiously, what was the response to that?
It's got it.
But as in, like, what was the, I guess, emotional
the actual response?
Was it like impatient? Was it like appreciative?
I think because I was already kind of on as more of an attachment than an actual crew member, it was definitely sort of like a, I actually got halfway through the sentence. I said that some people use got it and some people use, and then they spoke and were like, oh, and also yours, mine. We use got it. That was their...
I think a lot of the jargon is depending on the production background. It's depending on age. I think we are seeing a lot more of American jargon creeping in because of internet. The swing is something has been around for probably as long as I've been around.
Alive?
Filmmaking alive, so to speak. Yeah, so it generally means changing from one to another. Don't really know where it comes from, but yeah, it's definitely been there. Sticks has been there for tripod, and I do believe the reason there is, particularly for 35mm film production, cameras were so big and heavy that we tend to go with a lot chunkier, bigger heads. So do you remember from our classes, there are different bowl sizes, head sizes?
Yeah.
So generally for a 35mm package, we'd go the largest bowl size, which is 150mm. Very common head for that would be, if we're talking fluid head, would be something like a Connor 2575, which weighs about 10, 12 kilos for the head itself, I'd say.
God.
And comes in its own flight case. So generally you would, for transport, you would pack head and legs separately. You've probably noticed that the all-in-one kind of tripod packages have got two major weaknesses. You can't get them high enough and you can't get them low enough.
Yeah.
So there used to be a standard kit of 3 leg sizes. A medium, a tall, or high legs, and then low legs. And then maybe you'd get baby legs as well. So you'd potentially carry around 4 sets of sticks for one.
Right. Okay. Well, I do have another thing that I found out was different while I was shooting things. It was tail slating was a thingo. Here's my slate, like this. Yeah, don't read this, guys. It's a coincidence that this is on my desk. It's a coincidence, all right? I used the 3rd book in the series to kill bugs. If this is right set up, right?
Yes.
At JMC, I believe, for tail slates, we were taught upside down. Let me get rid of it, right? So you put it in frame upside down, turn it around, and then mark it when called, and then take it out. However, it is different on 2 of the sets that I've been to. The JMC one hasn't been used yet for me. However, the person who taught it to me at JMC has much more professional experience, so I'm inclined to use it. I'm inclined to think that what I've seen is actually the exception. It was this. It was putting it in right side up, marking it, and then doing that, turning it on its side, and then allowing the camera to stop rolling with that on its side, which made sense, like in terms of the way that. Anyway, that's a complete digression. There's nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's just a weird observation I made. I
personally want to have as little as physically and mentally possible to do with tail slates.
Why is that? They're fun.
Because no one can agree on that.
Oh, really? This is what I'm asking about. How much stuff is there that no one can agree on? Because I'm really worried about that. Like, that's my number one sort of like, I feel like there are so many tiny little things, like who calls what. And I realize it's all things I can ask about. But are there things that you avoid because nobody can agree on them? Because it sounds like tail slate might be one of those things.
As in, when we need to use them, we need to use them. I've got no problem with that. I just don't want to make the decisions on it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because I don't want to blow back.
What do you mean? The blowback?
As in when it doesn't work.
Oh, Kim suggested that we do that. Silly Kim.
Where you will see the greatest disagreement are on the exceptions. Tail slates are usually exceptions, right?
Right, yeah.
I'm trying to remember when I last used a tail slate on an actual production. I don't think I can remember, to be honest.
Wow.
But, a lot of that has to do with my preferred way of working, as in a take is a take. It's probably worth establishing with everyone, how do you want to run a tail slate?
Which I would ask the first AC?
Yes.
Okay.
And they then may need to ask the first AD because, and if they get a little bit shirty about like, why do we need to worry about that now? I would say that when you need a tail slate is usually a last minute decision.
So it's kind of, it is a hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to know.
I think this is one of those where you are potentially trying to buy yourself more trouble than you need to at this stage. And I mean that by the differences in procedures in different productions. I think off the top of my head, I can't see a better way than experience because there are going to be so many differences. And I think a lot of those differences are going to work on a kind of ingrained instinctual levels and no one will have written them down. I mean, this could be a potential community thing. Starting to build like a dictionary or database of differences, different ways of running X, Y, Z, whatever.
I like that.
So are we going to call this something
trademarkable,
easy to remember, or are we going to call it something fancy schmancy.
Okay. First, before we name it, we should figure out what we're actually going to do with it. Let's say, how do we make it a community dictionary without it being chaos?
This is something that would fit very well in like either like a wiki style, like fan fiction, fan wikis, that style of resource, or like a forum. So you keep like an open post on Slate, head Slate, you keep an open post on tail Slate whenever someone has come across a new procedure and add a reply at a post. Because I think like traditionally, this is very far from the way it's been done. Like people are kept it here, they've kept it like muscle memory.
This is just a thematic follow-on from the iconic episode Old School, New School Learning. New School, Old School Learning. I think one of the stranger things about the direction this little project is going in is that I think as I pivot from academic learning to experiential learning, a lot more of the questions we're going to be having, a lot more of the episodes we're going to be having is going to be me opening it being like, so what do you think of...
I'd never seen that before.
I've never seen that before. Or...
It was wild.
It was crazy. And then every second week I'll be like, what do you think of the color red? And we'll just have like a long conversation about the color red for a while.
That's a wild color.
It's a crazy color.
Before.
Holy shit.
People do that?
What's green?
Did this exist?
Did this
10 years ago?
This is absolutely insane. And then like 2 years from now, I'll be like, Kim, can we delete all of these episodes? Because look at how dumb I look right now.
Well, it's kind of goes in the mission statement of the podcast, doesn't it?
It really does, doesn't it?
Intrepid film student asked the stupid questions, so you don't have to.
So cool. Really cool. This is my legacy. This is the beginning of my resenting you didn't know arc, my story arc. I'm trying to think of a name for this dictionary and also a format for it. I'm just thinking of a name for it. Hang on. Don't mind the silence. Play something over this.
That's all right.
If you have any music.
I had a few suggestions, but I was just going to make sure that I'm not making an ass out of myself.
God forbid. The Jargon Dictionary. It's dictionary with a K instead. Sorry, a J.
Oh, I thought you said like dictionary.
Dictionary. That sounds wrong to say. I don't know why. I'm not going to say that anymore. It just sounds wrong. Something's up with that word. Terrible vibe.
My first suggestion was going to be the Modern Set Morphology.
The Modern Set Morphology. That's already way better than anything I could have possibly thought of. The MSM. It's already the MSM as well. You've got an acronym for it.
Variation on that was going to be the Contemporary Set Codex.
It's great. That's the CSC. What's that bit at the end of the book? Oh, yeah. Glossary.
I had another one. There's a fancy sounding name for spell book. Because half of this kind of seems made up like you kind of...
Spell book. It's like Moria or something. It's like some kind of like a...
Grimoire.
Grimoire. That's it. So that's I was thinking, because one of the things that's happened to me is that I've done my classic, like, wow, that thing is so cool on like, I think the live broadcast. And I've had one of the operators look at me and be like, you're really green, aren't you? Like fresh. So it could be like the green grimoire,
Yeah.
Or the green glossary, The green set glossary, the green set grimoire.
The set Grinch's grimoire.
Set Grinch's. All right.
As in, like the grumpy old practitioners.
I like that. Yeah. The set Grinch grimoire. Set Grinch is better. Set Grinch grimoire.
Ooh.
What?
Could we have our first community post vote?
You're shitting me right now. That is just an absurd idea.
All right. So what have we got? We've got the Modern Set Morphology.
So Modern Set Morphology. Then there was the Contemporary Set. What was that? Codex.
There's a little wordplay there because for a while, like the high-end data cards were made by Codex and they were hideously expensive.
I see.
First recorder for the Alexa was made by Codex.
Oh, I'm sure it cost $36,000.
Yeah, something like that.
Set Grinch's grimoire. Set Grinch's glossary. Green Set glossary. Okay, I've got Modern Set Morphology, Contemporary Set Codex, Set Grinch's Grimoire. Did we have any other ideas?
Not off the top of my head, no.
That's very, very exciting.
Part of the reason why I kind of didn't throw the glossary part into it was that I wanted to leave it open for procedures.
I'll get rid of glossary. That's a good idea.
I appear to be in the minority of operators. In as much as I hate buttoning, I don't want to be near any buttons.
Scared of buttons. That's because of the you do something. This is because it's because you don't want the fallback again, like it's cut to cover your ass moment.
Yeah, and
right?
it's also that like years of muscle memory makes it difficult to adapt to different cameras. Like all cameras have got the recording button in a different place, and then on more well-equipped sets, then most of the AC's fizz units will have a start-stop button on it anyway. Mapbox tags for filters. Apparently, I like it the other way around to what most operators have learned. So, like you remember, like your Mapbox, how we stick tags on the operator's side to show what filter is in the Mapbox at any given time.
Yeah,
I like having the bottom one being the filter stage closest to the lens, and then go up away from there. Supposedly, most other operators do it the other way around. And
that's just a preference of you. Again, that's another thing that comes entirely down to preference.
Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of jargon kind of gets started. I suspect that the hot brick just started with one person kind of like, yeah, this feels hot. It's shaped like a brick.
Got like saying hot brick once. And some fresh-eyed second AC like me was like, everyone says that. And started passing it around the entire world.
And then a lot of it is a certain team building, camaraderie.
Yeah.
A lot of jargon comes from kind of shared experiences. For example, I was on a shoot, came up with some particular rig for a particular shot for a James Bond spoof scene. So a few productions down the track working with the same people again, let's do a 007.
Yeah.
The American ones are probably more well documented. So have you come across an Applebox yet?
Yes, I have. Twice.
All right, so there are 3 ways you can set up an Applebox. So the lowest one...
That's just when it's flat on the ground, right?
Yeah, gets referred to in the US as LA style. Then if
I've heard
flip
this.
it up, so it's a little bit taller, then it's a Chicago style.
I have to say Chicago style, I promise.
And then if you flip it tall, then it's New York style.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean about this? Again, the answer, as usual now, is, it's an experience thing. Figure it out. But what an industry to just walk into. Hey, can I get an Applebox? Like, someone's completely new. Can I get an Applebox Chicago style? Like, what? It's really interesting. And then I know that someday, in like a year or two, I'll be just saying that stuff. And then I'll remember that like when I re-enter the real world and I say that shit to someone normal, like, I don't know, like a partner or a friend, like, oh yeah, I got to put like an Applebox Chicago style. They're going to look at me like I'm speaking a different language, because I basically am at that point. It is so interesting how insular the language is in that industry.
Yeah, because it becomes that efficiency.
Yeah, and it is very efficient to say Applebox Chicago style,
Let me know if this is going to get us cancelled. If so, I'll...
Okay, yeah.
But like a short, slow dolly in, apparently, again, in the US, because that's where they are better at documenting these anecdotes.
Yeah.
Used to be known as a Mickey Rooney.
I think I know why. That's nice.
He was vertically challenged.
Oh,
that's okay to say now, isn't it?
I think you can just say short.
And apparently was a little creepy with female casting crew.
That's not going to get us cancelled. It's his fault he was creepy with female casting. Like, whatever. That's Mickey Rooney's fault. And
everyone kind of knew, like, just exactly how far to push in, how slow it should happen.
Mickey Rooney, wow, that's. I think we all know Mickey Rooney is free ground. Yeah, you can say whatever. That's fine. That's not going to get us cancelled. We all know what Mickey Rooney's mistakes have been documented wildly across all of pop culture. We all know it's fine.
So I for a little while wanted to try and get that Australianized to this part. I'm definitely not gonna, because it'll be defamation. But just for your interest, tried to get Australianized by going.
We should definitely cut that out at least, because unfortunately people still like that guy. You can reverse this and you can be like, that guy, he's a bit of a slow dolly in, That fella's a bit of a slow dolly in. He's a bit of a push in. If someone's a little creep, you can say he's a push in. You know, he's a bit of a yeah.
But just to give you some other examples of how these things develop, this hasn't gone very far, but it's just, you know, how things goes from one set to another by virtue of having worked on both sets. So I had a gaffer for a while who was Dutch, and he was just about, you know, Dutch are the tallest ethnicity in the world. So he was Dutch, as in 2 meters, 2 centimeters or something.
God.
We were shooting outdoors. I needed a quick kind of hiding glare for the sun for the lens and go, hey, Martin, do you mind taking half a step to your right? Just that my French flag isn't doing the job. So since the French flag didn't work, but the Dutch guy did, having someone stand and block the sun on that particular crew got known as can we do a Dutch flag?
That's excellent. I love that.
Yeah, so it would be, you know, a few shoots down the track. It would be, can we do something about this flare? Yeah, is a Dutch flag going to do it for you? Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Oh, you come stand here. And I think a lot of the jargon and terminology has developed in a very similar manner.
I would love a 3-hour-long documentary deep dive into all of the anecdotes, like surrounding the history behind every single weird piece of jargon in the entire industry. It would be impossible to do. You need to wrangle literally everyone on the entire planet to do it properly, but it would be so entertaining. I already garner so much entertainment from all of the ways that you explain different pieces of jargon and the way that I've heard them explained on different sets. It would just be so fascinating. We could add it to the Grimoire even, who knows?
I think we are probably in a better place to do so now than we've ever been. I think this would be something that would be quite easy to get buy-in from retired practitioners, even if it was just like kind of self-recording of one term. I used to think that the sushi boards, the leveling dolly track was an Australian thing because I never saw sushi boards referred to in any of the forums. Just turns out they've got different names.
So what is it the British name was again? The British name was like Lingosis or something?
So the US name is Basso Blocks, and the UK European name is Paganini block or a Paganini board.
Jesus. I've heard Basso blocks.
Yeah. I did come across a very short but obscure reference to using Paganinis to level set walls in the 1930s.
So that's an old piece of slang. That is it could be a brand.
I had absolutely no idea up until like a couple of weeks ago.
It could be a brand name.
Maybe. This could be the Setymology Project?
The Setymology Project. Should we just name our dictionary thing that? Or are we sticking with Grinch Grimoire?
No, I think this would be more like the anecdotal weirdness of...
Okay. The Setymology Project. Whew. We've got a bit of a task ahead of us, though, if we're going to formally collate all of the processes and jargon, presumably in Australia so far, hopefully not the entire planet.
It shouldn't be too difficult. I think, like I said, this, I think, is something that would appeal to particularly the recently retired practitioners.
Catch us in 2 years with the You Didn't Know Setymology Project, which is a 3-hour-long talking head documentary with is it Ken Burns who did the Civil War documentary back in the day that had like a...
That rings a bell.
Yeah, I think it's Ken with like talking heads of these retired practitioners and the slang that they started and like Ken Burns style photo images of all the sets that they were on. And like it's 3 hours long and it's just this comprehensive guide of how all of the jargon began. It'll be excellent. It'll be excellent, guys. That's our 2-year plan. Put it on the You Didn't Know Marvel Cinematic Universe-esque slate.
So, do you want to try and sum up?
As usual, the first chunk of this episode has been populated largely by questions that can be answered with, get more experience. There is a lot to do with the processes on set, whether they work. My phone's buzzing, it's so distracting. Damn it. Okay. I only recently relearned, because you were very forgiving with us in a JMC, I forgot that a phone buzz is an entire case of beer. Like, not just...
You got
it's a shame. There's another piece of jargon for you. But yeah, we've learned generally that a lot of this jargon and a lot of these processes exist for efficiency. And what's important is like communication. Whatever role you're in, talk to your immediate supervisor, ask them how they prefer to do things. If your immediate supervisor needs to, they will ask like the first AD or someone and so on. Like just, talk to someone first, preferably your immediate supervisor. Now I've learned that I'm going to spend most of my time communicating with the first AC in that area. Like that'll be my focus if I want to keep seconding. And it sounds to me like a lot of the jargon is not only an efficiency thing, but also just almost a collection of inside jokes. It really is quite personal, and it simply just got out of hand. But because they work, Next time a fresh-faced, complete beginner is asked to give someone an Applebox Chicago style, hopefully they're able to just ask, hey, what does that mean? That's the best part, because that's what I've been able to do so far. You just go, what does that mean? And they go, oh, it's those boxes. It's great.
Or we may have alternatives. We may have alternatives to learning it that way, as in recreating resources.
True. Hypothetically, creating resources that give people a guide to all of those pieces of slang.
I do think that this is the kind of thing that lends itself to community projects.
Yeah.
And I think they are relatively, compared to a lot of other things, they are relatively simple to get buy-in and contributions from others. So I think, why don't we open here, viewer, listener, what's the most fascinating piece of jargon you've come across in the film industry?
You better let us know in the comments, or else you're banned from the channel and the forum that's been around the whole time, and we didn't add you because you haven't been commenting enough. So if you comment, we'll add you to the secret forum that we definitely have. Yeah, that's right.
Did you learn new jargon in this episode? Anything surprise you? Can you top our examples of weird jargon?
And whoever can tell me in the comments, this is the challenge, whoever can tell me what Glingo a boingus means, because it's a real piece of jargon, it's real, I promise, gets $400 and an ARRI 65 with a full kit. We can do that, right? Yeah, fair enough.
That's all on him. This is a button that I will not go near.
You're getting one
he's buttoning this one.
You're getting one that I dropped by accident, honestly. You're getting the 65 grand doorstop that I don't want in my house anymore, because it makes me feel sick whenever I walk past it. Okay, that's a pretty rounded out conclusion.
I think so.
Yeah.